The Phoenix Suns did in fact make a trade at the NBA trade deadline on Thursday. We all expected that. What we did not expect is that Nasir Little stayed put and the Phoenix Suns got David Roddy. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll break down the acquisition of Royce ONeale and why they chose this path over the others. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen post-trade deadline. We are free and available everywhere, including YouTube. So if it's your first time finding the show, or maybe you just haven't bothered to hit that button before, please press follow or subscribe wherever you are finding the show. Get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right here all season long. Today's show, the trade deadline. We will have another episode post this Utah Jazz game, provided that it is competitive. It could be a little weird. We'll get there in a second, but the Suns made 2 deals. Well, they made 1 deal and brought in 2 players. Royce ONeale in. David Roddy from the Memphis Grizzlies in. Chimezi Metu, Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, and Jordan Goodwin out. That's not anything we expected, I would say, right? Like 8:30 Wednesday night when I recorded, we all sort of assumed the Miles Bridges thing was the strongest possibility. Maybe ONeale was an obvious backup plan, but okay. And all along we thought the package, no matter who they acquired, was very likely to include Nasir Little and probably 2 second-round picks. Instead, the Suns are able to package 4 of their minimum salaries to add up to Royce ONeale's number, and they give up 3 seconds instead. So, what I would assume, just to clear up the package of everything first here, is that the Suns had technically 4 seconds to trade. Okay? One of them is this year's Spurs pick protected through the top 25 selections of the second round, meaning it's not going to convey. I've never been able to find anything beyond that in terms of the protections, which makes me think it goes away. As fake of a second-round pick as there can be. Barely even should be counted. So my assumption, and I have not seen this confirmed yet, is that the Suns will be trading the other 3 that they had, which are Memphis's 2028 second-round pick, Boston's 2028 second-round pick, which is also fairly fake, protected the top 25 picks, but at least it's far enough out that we don't know for sure that it is going to not exist. And then the 2029 Memphis second-round pick. Those are going to be the 3 I would expect will go out, and that Spurs pick will just expire on draft night because it will not convey. The Spurs are not a good team right now. Their second-round pick is going to be probably in the top 5 of the second round, so it's not even going to be close. So, let's talk about the players first. We'll get into more of the specifics of the machinations of everything in the second segment. But They didn't. Well, no, let's flip that. We're already on the machinations. We might as well stay here. We'll do the more on the players next. So, Bridges apparently wanted to stay in Charlotte. Or, let's put it this way. Bridges wanted to maximize the amount of money he could make in the summer. And not only did the trade deadline factor in, or the no trade clause factor in at the deadline, which got a lot of attention, but it's not just the Suns, right, that would have had a hard time re-signing him. And I think that's maybe what was going under the radar. I feel like people assumed that because of the Suns being over the second apron and whatever, that's why they can't keep Bridges. No. The reason that it would be hard for anybody to keep Bridges, and the reason that he has this no trade clause, is that he would be giving up his bird rights, meaning whoever acquired him would not be able to really give him a much of a big salary at all. They'd be giving him, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like $10, $11, $12 million a year would be the max, or in year one, that would be the maximum. And he didn't want to do that. Maybe there's eventually a sign and trade in the summer. We'll see. Or he just goes somewhere with cap space. But agreeing to a trade would have made all of that even more complicated for him. And so he didn't go that route. And so the Suns pivot to Royce ONeale. And they are able to use this trade exception for Dario Saric, which expired today. That was part of the subsequent move that the Suns made at the deadline last year after the Durant deal to send Saric to Oklahoma City. That exception was a little bit bigger than Roddy's salary, and I was hopeful they could potentially do a little more there, but considering that they really only had 3 seconds to play with, really more like 2, and they were trying to do multiple things, in the end, all you're really able to get is a minimum player, not a minimum, but David Roddy is on his rookie contract as a first-round pick, so he's making about the same as a veteran minimum would make. And he's somebody that, frankly, the Grizzlies didn't have any real use for. He had more than an opportunity the past couple of seasons to prove himself there, and he has not done so. We'll get into the specifics of who these guys are next in the next segment, but that's where the Suns end up. So they clear 2 roster spots by trading away 4 players and getting only 2 back. So they set themselves up for the buyout market. They avoid having to give up Nasir Little, who I would hope will now get more of an opportunity to play. But even if he doesn't do that, they continue to have that salary chip as a trade option in the summer. And they get a player who is going to be a solid rotation guy for them and very well could start for this team down the line in Royce ONeale. So we'll break his game down, how he fits, as well as what the potential is with David Roddy, if any, next. First, today's show brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd this season to provide you with the best fantasy basketball picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked for this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. These are customized for the trade deadline. That is how hot off the presses it is. Bennedict Mathurin. With Buddy Hield now in Philadelphia, Mathurin may well start, but he is certainly going to get more minutes on this Pacers squad. Cody Martin, similar, could be starting for Charlotte now with Gordon Hayward gone. Taylor Hendricks, who we are going to see on Thursday night against the Suns. He was called up from the G League. And 2 of Utah's top rotation guys in Fontecchio and Olynyk are out, meaning Hendricks could finally get some minutes. Asar Thompson has been playing a lot more lately again and figures to continue to do so. And Marvin Bagley, who was just in Detroit, he is probably going to be starting for the Washington Wizards after a trade there about a month ago, and Daniel Gafford now heading to Dallas. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Hoops, going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. I have praised eBay Motors time and again. I bought a windshield flap cover for, obviously, the sunshade for your eyes as you're driving. I bought a wheel cover and more. Windshield wipers once. With over 122 million parts for your ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly with eBay Motors. Whether it's brake kits, LED headlights, or whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors, once again, will have it. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. And with these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Let's keep it rolling here. Royce ONeale, 30 years old, been in the NBA for, this is his 7th season, has played in 44 playoff games, which is already very appealing, including last year with the Nets in a sweep by the Philadelphia 76ers. But prior to that, the 2021 playoffs where Utah made a deep run, 2018 playoffs where Utah made a deep run. He has basically been in that postseason environment every single season of his career. We brought this up, Brandon Duenas and I, on Tuesday's show when ONeale came up, that his height has a discrepancy depending on where you look. He's listed at 6'4" on Basketball Reference. He is listed at 6'6" on NBA.com, and I don't know what the real answer is. In my head, I kind of always had it as 6'5", so maybe we just split the difference and we go with that. But either way, is he a perfect size for a small forward? Maybe not. You know, you look at Denver, plays Michael Porter Jr. at the 3, right? Oklahoma City plays Jalen Williams at the 3. Minnesota plays Jaden McDaniels at the 3. The Clippers play basically one of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard at the 3. That position is not as small as it used to be. But the best thing I think you would have to say is that for ONeale, he's bigger than Grayson Allen. And he does have a 6'9" wingspan, regardless of whatever you would say about his height. And just figures to be able to defend some of the players I just listed a little bit more easily than Grayson Allen, who I think Grayson has shown himself to be a much better guy guarding down, whereas ONeale his whole life has had to guard up, you know? So that's how I would put it. Let's say in the first round, the Suns do play the Wolves. ONeale can be an option against Anthony Edwards, maybe even an option against Karl Anthony Towns, in a way that Allen just would have really been at a disadvantage trying to do. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying ONeale is some sort of explosive athlete. I'm not convincing you of any of that, but he is a steady veteran defender who can guard up more easily, has a decent track record of creating turnovers, which is a nice thing to see, another thing that the Suns need. And because he's a little bit bigger, you could see him helping in those Durant at the 5 lineups a little bit better. Wouldn't be hard to imagine him in the slot that we had seen Metu or Okogie fill in some of those lineups recently, or Allen. Maybe the Suns can close now with Grayson on the bench and the big 3, ONeale and Gordon, right? So defensively, I think it gives them some more flexibility and an option that's just bigger. As for the offense, it's a little bit odd, okay? Because the past 2 years have just not been as good. He seems to be somebody who really benefited from the Quinn Snyder structure. And there's a few things about ONeale. He's somebody who the majority of his shots are going to be threes. All right, so he averaged per 36 minutes 6 and 8 per 36 minutes in each of his seasons in Brooklyn. Prior to that, he was around 4 or 5. But if you look at it as a percentage, more than half of his shots almost every single season of his career have come from deep. That's just what you're getting. And in this case, this season, 8 out of every 10 shots he's taken have been threes. So he's a floor spacer. He's also been a guy who turns the ball over a lot for whatever reason. And that's not what you'd love to hear if you're a Suns fan who's watched this team struggle in that category this season. But I don't expect it to be terrible. Yes, even in Utah, even in Brooklyn, he has been in a relatively small role. But still, he'll probably be in an even smaller role here. I can't even say that. The Jazz seasons, he had a usage rate under 10% some of those Utah seasons. So maybe the turnovers are just part of the package. But the good thing is, to complete the offensive side of the ball, the good thing is that he has improved as a playmaker lately. He is somebody that can keep the ball moving. And when you watch him in any place, but the fact that he played with the Nets is a great indicator when Durant was there at the beginning of last season. He is somebody that I think will be an awesome fit within the sort of playground style basketball the Suns kind of want to get to. Now, obviously, I'm the same person who's been advocating for them to run a little bit of more structured offense, and they should, but there's a happy medium there. There's a balance there that I think they can get to, and I think ONeale can be a really good part of that. Somebody who, if the ball swings to him, but really the shot they want maybe is he catches it in the corner and the closeout is coming, he's going to identify and execute a pass to just keep rotating the ball to the top of the key or the wing where maybe Booker is there even more open than him, right? Just some of those basic keep the offense churning types of plays I think you have to trust him to make. And if somebody's turnovers are high, but they are somebody who also can make those plays, you live with the bad and you take the good. And I think he'll be one of those players. As for David Roddy, to me, my best read on it is they didn't want to let that TPE completely go to waste. It expired today. They exist for a year, so Šarić was traded a year ago. Now it would have expired and just gone away. So by keeping him, or by getting him, you fill that roster spot. He's young. You at least give yourself a chance to see him in practices, see him in, film rooms, maybe give him some run down the stretch run of the season here and there. And in the summer, he will be, I believe he was, I can just also look rather than guessing. I do have a computer in front of me after all. He's in year 2. So next summer, as in 2025, he will be extension eligible. And the year after that, he will become a restricted free agent. So if for whatever reason he is able to hit, you have a player that is cost controlled and who you could eventually flip or pay and have on a bigger salary, which is something the Suns are going to need. Even, I'm not saying he's going to be a $20 million player all of a sudden, but maybe he becomes like a Nasir Little in the future that becomes the next, in the 2026 deadline when the Suns are like, crap, what are we going to do? We don't have a lot of stuff. Oh, we have David Roddy on this extension we just gave him making $7, $8, $9 million. Great. Now, is that going to happen? I'm not sure. He's been one of the most negative players in the NBA statistically on offense for both of the seasons he's been in the league. If his three-point shot does not come around, it's hard to see what the pathway is for him. But for a team we know wanted PJ Tucker, who is unlikely to be bought out, and we'll get to that in just a moment, Roddy is like the number one guy in the NBA compared to PJ Tucker. Physically, they have almost the same exact dimensions, small but stout with long arms, and that's a best-case scenario for him. If he hits even a little bit, that gives you another versatile defender, somebody with physicality and defensive toughness and some upside. But to even get to playable, I think is asking a lot given what we've seen from Roddy and the fact that he's already 22. This is not a guy who came into the league very, very young and is just getting his legs under him. He should be showing something by now, and if he doesn't show something the rest of this season, not just in games but in practices, I think you'll see the Suns probably move on from him. Let's close out the show talking about the buyout market. Who did not get traded that may be available as a buyout player? The Suns have 2 openings. What are they going to do to fill them? We'll get into that next. First, are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone to your car. Instead, Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability as well. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or even the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Let's close out the show. Again, by sending out 4 players and bringing back just 2, the Suns opened up roster spots without having to cut anybody that they can now use to sign buyout players. The first thing I will just say is that after getting Durant and increasing their championship odds quite a bit and thinning out their roster and really needing depth, the Suns last season got Terrence Ross and, well, they got Bazley, and that didn't end up doing anything. And by the time the playoffs rolled around, Ross was not really in the rotation. So, even being a team that can promise playing time and promise postseason possibilities in terms of, hey, we can make a run, that still does not guarantee you anything. So far, we have seen Thaddeus Young, Corey Joseph, and Victor Oladipo be cut, as well as Daniel House Jr. So, of the guys that got traded today, that's the 4 that we saw. There are going to be more. And Locked On Suns insiders, those rumors are not going away, guys. If you want to know who's an option on the buyout market, who the Suns are connected to, as well as game day analysis, exclusive content. Once we get more subscribers, we are trending in the right direction. I will say, once we get to 50, and we're pretty close, I will do an exclusive mailbag episode with just questions from insider subscribers. So join the Locked On Suns Insider community at the link in the show description below, or visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSuns to be in the know about the Suns all the time and get access to exclusive content straight to your phone, where you can respond to me and more. I sent a list on the subtext to all of the Locked On Suns insiders with my initial list of buyout candidates. It's the guys I just listed, plus I would look at Otto Porter Jr. I think there's an outside chance that Andre Drummond gets cut, but to me, that would be his choice. Okay? He would have to, and not just his choice, but he would have to really push for it, because the Bulls are saying all sorts of crazy things, as they always do, indicating that they still want to win. Okay. Sure. You guys want to win. My biggest need for the Suns coming off of what they did today, even though I think that they gave themselves one and a small chance of two guys who can be a bigger, who can help them be a better small ball team, they still need another center, in my opinion. Even if you like Drew Eubanks, and I go back and forth, but I would say on the whole, I still don't fully trust him. Even if you do trust him and you do like him, the reality is that he is small. And we identified that from the minute that the Suns signed him, right? Even before we knew the Nurkic trade was happening and he was Ayton's backup. We were all like, well, hold on. The team that just eliminated the Suns has Nikola Jokic on their team. Ayton, Nurkic, those guys can match up with Jokic, but Eubanks can't. So are you asking for the Suns starting center to play the same number of minutes as Jokic in the playoffs? Or, I mean, at this point, you even have to look at the Clippers, who have both Zubats and Plumlee with good size. Not to mention Minnesota, who is a huge team too and always has one of Gobert and Towns on the court. So if you just look at it that way, to me, I think the Suns need another center. Who is that going to be? I don't know the answer to that. I believe Jericho Sims in New York is still available, but he has a team option. So, and at the end of the day, he is 6'9" himself. He's not that different from what Eubanks is. People have talked about the Orlando Magic with Goga Bitadze. I could see that, but they did not make a move at this deadline, which makes me feel like they largely just want to stand pat and that they are ahead of schedule a little bit and they want to just see what their young guys can do in the playoffs. So I'm not sure cutting somebody who's played minutes for them this year makes sense. I look around the rest of the league and it's like, would the Rockets cut Jock Landale? The next 3 years of that 4-year contract he signed are non-guaranteed, so theoretically, you could cut him now. But I would imagine that they like the flexibility of going into the summer and saying, well, he's non-guaranteed, but if we need him for a trade, we can guarantee that $8 million for the next season and trade him on that contract. And the team that gets him has the same flexibility for the next 2 years. So I doubt they would make that call right now and just cut him. So probably not likely. Dallas, they did just get Daniel Gafford. I could see that making Dwight Powell expendable, but he's not on a 1-year contract. So cutting him it's not going to happen. You don't see that happen. Charlotte, I don't really see any centers cuttable. Nick Richards is on a long contract. They're going to keep him at this point. There's not a lot of candidates out there. One I could see would be Bruno Fernando in Atlanta, somebody who has never really caught on in the NBA and played a consistent role, but is kind of like Jock Landale, where his contract is only guaranteed this season. But the reality is, guys, I'm looking at this marketplace, and unless Drummond were to just surprise us and get cut, there are just not a lot of centers that are going to be available. So the Suns might be looking at a situation where they have to game plan and scheme and get creative against some of those questionable matchup type teams. Hope that Durant plays out of his mind on defense and they can cobble together some small ball units that work, and that this offense is going to be the best thing about this team, and that's going to be their pathway to winning. Keep up with all Suns rumors. Be in the know about the Suns all the time with the Locked On Suns Insider community. You can sign up in the link in the show description below or visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSuns to get every name who could or does hit the buyout market straight to your phone. I will be doing my homework constantly to get those all to all of you. In the meantime, enjoy Suns Jazz on Thursday night, and I will catch you all post-game.